You come from a long line of survivors. Every single person in your ancestry, going back further than you can picture, managed to do two things: stay alive long enough to reproduce and actually do it. Not one of them failed. Not one link in that chain ever broke. If a single one had died a little too young, you would not exist. That sounds like a story of heroes. It isn't, because the people who filled that chain, the ones who survived to become your ancestors, were not the bravest members of their tribes. They were not the ones who charged the predator or explored the dark cave or stood their ground when they should have run. Those people are not your ancestors. Those people mostly died. You are descended from the ones who flinched, the ones who ran, the ones who felt that cold spike of fear and listened to it. You are, quite literally, the great-great-grandchild of 10,000 generations of cowards. And by the end of this, you're going to be grateful for every single one of them, because the fear you carry around today, the anxiety you're maybe a little ashamed of, is not a flaw in you. It's the most successful survival technology in the history of life on Earth. Let's start by killing an idea you've had in your head since school: survival of the fittest. You probably picture the fittest as the strongest, the fastest, the boldest. The lion, not the mouse. But that's not what fitness means in evolution. Fitness just means one thing: how many surviving descendants you leave behind. That's it. A trembling, cautious creature that lives long enough to raise 10 children is infinitely fitter, in evolution's eyes, than a magnificent, fearless one that dies childless at 20. And in a world full of things that could kill you, caution was the winning strategy almost every time. Think about what the ancient world actually demanded. Your ancestors lived surrounded by predators, poisons, cliffs, disease, starvation, and other humans who might want them dead. In that world, there were two kinds of people. The first kind heard a rustle in the grass and thought, probably nothing, and kept walking. The second kind heard the same rustle and froze, heart pounding, ready to run. Most of the time, it really was nothing, but every so often, it was a leopard. The relaxed ones were right more often. The nervous ones survived more often. And survival is the only vote that counts. Over thousands of generations, the calm and the reckless were quietly removed from the gene pool, one bad gamble at a time, and the anxious were left to inherit the earth. You are their descendant. Their fear is your fear. It worked. There's a beautiful piece of logic behind this, worked out by the evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Nesse, and once you understand it, you'll never think about your own anxiety the same way again. He calls it the smoke detector principle. Think about the smoke alarm in your home. It goes off when you burn toast. It goes off from steam in the shower. It is frankly annoying, and almost every time it screams, there is no fire. So why don't we build calmer smoke detectors, ones that only trigger for real danger? Because the two mistakes a smoke detector can make are not equal. A false alarm costs you 30 seconds of irritation. A missed alarm costs you your life. When one error is cheap and the other is catastrophic, you build the system to err again and again on the side of the cheap mistake. Your fear works exactly the same way. Your brain would rather flood your body with panic 100 times over nothing than stay calm the one time it matters. Flinching at a shadow costs you a racing heart for a few seconds. Not flinching at a real threat costs you everything. So evolution tuned you deliberately to be jumpy. Your anxiety is not broken. It's a smoke detector doing precisely what it was built to do, which is to cry wolf over and over, so that on the one day there's an actual wolf, you're already running. And that detector came preloaded with a list of things to be afraid of. Consider snakes. Most people feel an instant jolt at the sight of one, even a harmless one, even a photo of one. Now consider that far more people today are killed by cars than by snakes. And yet almost nobody flinches at a photo of a car. Why? Because your brain wasn't shaped by the last 100 years. It was shaped by the last few 100,000. Researchers like Arne Oman and Susan Minica showed that humans learned to fear snakes and spiders with almost no effort, while we struggled to build the same gut-level fear of far deadlier modern things. The ancient threats are written in, the new ones aren't. It goes deeper than snakes. In one of the most famous experiments in psychology from 1960, Researchers Eleanor Gibson and Richard Walk built what they called a visual cliff. It was a glass surface over an apparent drop, completely safe, but it looked like the edge of a ledge. Then they placed babies on it, babies barely old enough to crawl, and asked their mothers to call them across. And the babies stopped. At the edge of the illusion, they hesitated and refused, even with their own mother beckoning. They had never fallen. Nobody had taught them. The fear of heights was already there, installed before their first memory, a warning handed down from ancestors who learned the hard way what a cliff does. And then there's disgust. That curl of revulsion you feel at rotting meat, at open wounds, at the smell of decay. It feels almost moral, but it's medical. Disgust is an inherited quarantine system, studied in depth by researchers like Valerie Curtis, designed to keep you away from the things most likely to carry disease. Your ancestors who felt sick at the sight of rot avoided the infections that killed the ones who didn't. So the next time your stomach turns, understand what's happening. That's 10,000 generations of ancestors reaching forward through time to slap the food out of your hand. Even paranoia has ancient roots. That prickling sense that you're being watched. That certainty that the dark shape in the corner is a person. Your brain is running something psychologists call agency detection, and it's set to hair trigger. If the wind moves a bush and you assume it's a predator, you waste a little fear. If a predator moves a bush and you assume it's the wind, you die. So we evolved to see intention everywhere, to assume the world is full of hidden watchers, because the cost of being wrong in that direction was so much lower. Your capacity to feel haunted is a survival feature. But the fear that runs deepest isn't about snakes, or heights, or the dark. It's about something far more ordinary. And it starts with a strange piece of mental accounting. Notice how a single insult can outweigh a dozen compliments. How one criticism at work can erase a whole week of praise. How losing $100 feels worse than finding $100 feels good. This isn't you being negative or ungrateful. It's a law of the human mind, documented over and over. Psychologists call it the negativity bias, and the researchers Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed that we feel losses roughly twice as intensely as equivalent gains. And of course we do. In the ancestral world, the good things were nice but optional. A better meal, a bit more status. The bad things were final. One mistake, one predator, one poisoned berry, and the story was over. A mind that obsessed over threats and shrugged off pleasures kept its owner alive. A mind that did the reverse did not last long enough to become anyone's ancestor. So you inherited the worried one. You are wired to protect what you have far more fiercely than to reach for what you want. Because for 100,000 years, that was the difference between living and dying. Now bring all of that fear to bear on the one thing your ancestors feared most of all. Not the leopard, each other. For almost the entire human story, you could not survive alone. Not for long. A single human cast out of the group, exposed to the elements and the predators and the winter with no one to share food or keep watch, was a dead human. The group was everything. It was food, warmth, safety, mating, meaning. And so being rejected by the group was not merely unpleasant. It was a death sentence. This is why rejection hurts the way it does. The psychologist Kipling Williams has spent decades studying ostracism, and one of the striking findings is that social exclusion activates some of the same circuitry as physical pain. Your brain treats being left out as a genuine injury, because for your ancestors, it was the beginning of the end. That flush of shame when you embarrass yourself in front of others. That dread before speaking in a room full of people. That obsessive replaying of what they might think of you. That is not vanity. It's the oldest survival instinct you have, screaming that if the tribe turns against you, you will not last the winter. You carry a brain that would genuinely rather you feel a stab of social terror than risk being cast out. Because the ones who didn't care about belonging got left behind, in every sense, and their line ended with them. So here you are. The proud owner of a mind built by the most cautious, most fearful, most easily disgusted survivors of the ancient world. Every alarm they needed, you inherited. And that would be a triumphant story, except for one enormous problem. The world they built you for is gone. You are running 200,000-year-old software in a world that updated overnight. The snakes are behind glass at the zoo. The tribe won't exile you for an awkward comment. A rejected text message is not a leopard. But your alarm system doesn't know that. It can't tell the difference between a predator and a deadline, between banishment and an unanswered email, between real danger and a slightly uncomfortable meeting. It fires the same ancient panic at all of them because it was tuned for a world where every one of those signals might have meant death. This is what evolutionary scientists call mismatch, and it's the key that unlocks so much of modern suffering. So much of what we label as anxiety, as neurosis, as a personal failing, is not a malfunction at all. It's a perfectly good survival system doing its job with total competence in an environment it was never designed for. Your anxiety isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something was very, very right with your ancestors. You can watch it happen in your own day if you look for it. The jolt of dread before you walk into a room full of strangers, that's the tribe, quietly checking whether you'll be accepted or cast out. The 3 in the morning spiral, where a small worry swells into certain catastrophe, that's the smoke detector, unable to sleep, scanning the dark for leopards that aren't there. The way one sharp comment can sour an entire afternoon while a compliment fades in minutes, that's the negativity bias, still standing guard over a world that no longer works the way it did. None of it is you being weak. All of it is a body superbly equipped for a dangerous past, straining to make sense of a strangely safe present. The real tragedy of modern anxiety isn't that the system is failing you. It's that the system is working perfectly, firing at threats that are no longer there. And that's the reframe I want to leave you with. You have spent your life being told that your fear is weakness, that your anxiety is a defect to be fixed, a broken part of you to be ashamed of. It is none of those things. It is an inheritance. It is a gift, handed down across an unbroken chain of survivors who were scared at exactly the right moments, passed carefully from trembling hand to trembling hand, all the way down to you. You are the newest link in that chain, but you are also something none of them ever were. You are the first one who can see the whole thing, the first who can feel the alarm blaring and understand where it came from, and why, and whether this particular danger is real. Your ancestors had no choice but to obey the fear. You get to listen to it, thank it, and then decide for yourself. So the next time your heart pounds at something that can't actually hurt you, don't fight it, and don't be ashamed of it. Recognize it for what it is. That's 10,000 generations of survivors still trying to keep you alive. They were cowards, and they were magnificent, and they are the only reason you're here to be brave.